The dust cloud on the horizon had been growing smaller for 3 days now, and Anna Ellsworth stood at the window of the general store in Carson City, Nevada, watching it disappear entirely as her heart crumbled into pieces too small to ever put back together. She pressed her palm against the cool glass, her wedding dress hanging upstairs in her small room above the mercantile, unworn and gathering the same dust that coated everything in this relentless summer of 1878. Grant Westfield had promised to return in 6 months after driving cattle north to Montana, promised with kisses that tasted like hope and forever, but the letter that arrived yesterday from a cattle buyer in Billings told a different story altogether. Anna read that letter so many times the paper had gone soft at the creases, the words burning themselves into her memory with brutal clarity. The cattle buyer, a man named Thomas Hendricks, wrote to inform the proprietors of the Carson City General Store that their employee Grant Westfield would not be returning as planned, having married a woman named Catherine Morrison in Billings just 2 weeks prior. Hendricks mentioned it casually, as though he was discussing the weather or the price of beef, noting that he had attended the wedding himself and wanted to ensure someone informed the folks back home. He wrote that Grant seemed happy, that the bride was the daughter of a wealthy ranch owner, and that Grant had accepted a foreman position on the Morrison spread. The letter sat now on the counter beside a bolt of calico fabric, and Anna could not bring herself to throw it away, despite how each glance at it drove splinters deeper into her chest. She was 22 years old, had been working at her uncle's general store since her parents died of influenza 4 years ago, and had genuinely believed that Grant Westfield was the answer to every prayer she had whispered into the Nevada darkness. He had courted her properly for 8 months before leaving on the cattle drive, had asked her uncle for permission to marry her upon his return, had given her a silver ring that she still wore on a chain around her neck because she could not bear to remove it despite everything. "You need to take that down and stop torturing yourself," her Uncle Bernard said, emerging from the back room with a crate of canned goods. He was a weathered man of 53, with kind eyes that had seen too much loss, and he worried about Anna in the way he might have worried about the daughter he never had. Standing there watching for something that is not going to come will not change facts. "I know," Anna said, but she did not move from the window. Outside, the main street of Carson City bustled with its usual afternoon activity. Wagons rolled past carrying supplies to the mining operations in the surrounding hills. Cowboys drifted between the saloons. Women in bonnets hurried along the wooden walkways with baskets over their arms. Life continued as though Anna's world had not just collapsed completely, and somehow that felt like the cruelest part of all. "He was not worth it if he could do something like this," Bernard continued, setting the crate down with a grunt. "Any man who would make promises to a good woman and then break them so thoroughly has no honor. You deserve better." Anna wanted to believe that, wanted to feel anger instead of this awful hollow aching, but mostly she just felt foolish. She had told everyone about the wedding, had accepted congratulations from every customer who came through the store, had spent her evenings sewing the white dress that now hung upstairs like a ghost. The other unmarried women in town had looked at her with envy because Grant Westfield was handsome and strong and good with horses, because he had prospects and ambition. Now those same women would look at her with pity, and Anna thought she might prefer anything to that. "I should burn that letter," she said finally, turning away from the window. "Burn it and the dress and pretend none of this ever happened. Or you could hold your head high and show this town that you are stronger than one man's poor choices," Bernard replied. "You have done nothing wrong, Anna, nothing at all." But shame did not care about logic or innocence, and Anna felt it anyway, hot and heavy in her chest. She moved behind the counter and tried to focus on the ledger, on recording the sales from the morning, but the numbers blurred together until they made no sense at all. The bell above the door chimed as Mrs. Patterson came in for her weekly order of flour and sugar, and Anna forced a smile that felt like it might crack her face in half. "Good afternoon, Mrs. Patterson. What can I help you with today?" The older woman's eyes were too knowing, too sympathetic, and Anna realized that word had already spread. Of course it had. In a town of barely 800 souls, secrets lasted about as long as morning dew in the desert sun. "Oh, my dear," Mrs. Patterson said, reaching across the counter to pat Anna's hand. "I heard about that terrible business with Grant Westfield. What an absolute scoundrel. You are well rid of him, though I know it does not feel that way now." Anna's smile wobbled dangerously. "Thank you, Mrs. Patterson. Now, about that flour." The afternoon crawled past with agonizing slowness, each customer offering their sympathies or their poorly concealed curiosity, until Anna thought she might scream just to have something different happen. When Bernard finally told her to go upstairs and rest, that he would handle the remaining hours until closing, she went gratefully, climbing the narrow stairs to her room and shutting the door against the world. The wedding dress hung on the back of the door, and Anna stared at it for a long moment before carefully taking it down and folding it into the trunk at the foot of her bed. She would not burn it, she decided. She would not give Grant Westfield that much power over her. Instead, she would pack it away and move forward, though she had no idea what moving forward might look like when the future she had imagined so clearly had been ripped away. That night, Anna lay in bed and listened to the sounds of Carson City settling into darkness. Piano music drifted from the Silver Dollar Saloon down the street. Dogs barked in the distance. Somewhere, a baby cried. She thought about Grant in Montana with his new bride, wondered if he thought about her at all, wondered if he felt even a moment of guilt or regret. The not knowing felt almost worse than the betrayal itself. Sleep came eventually, restless and full of dreams that left her exhausted when dawn broke over the Sierra Nevada mountains to the west. Anna rose and dressed and went downstairs to help Bernard open the store, because there was nothing else to do, and because staying busy seemed like the only way to survive this. 3 weeks passed in a haze of routine and forced normalcy. Anna smiled at customers and filled orders and tried not to think about the life that should have been hers. She removed the silver ring from around her neck and placed it in the bottom of her trunk, buried under the wedding dress in old letters. She accepted dinner invitations from families in town who pitied her, who wanted to introduce her to their sons or nephews or cousins, and she went because refusing seemed like admitting defeat. But her heart remained stubbornly broken, and she could not imagine feeling anything for anyone else ever again. On a Tuesday morning in late August, when the heat sat on Carson City like a wool blanket and tempers ran short, the bell above the store door chimed, and Anna looked up from the inventory she was taking to see a figure silhouetted against the bright sunlight outside. For one wild, impossible moment, her heart leaped with the thought that it might be Grant, that he had come back, that the letter had been some terrible mistake. Then the figure stepped inside and resolved into someone else entirely, and Anna felt foolish for even hoping. The man was tall and lean, with dark hair that needed cutting, and several days' worth of stubble on his jaw. He wore dusty trail clothes and had the weathered look of someone who spent most of his time outdoors, and he carried a saddle over one shoulder like it weighed nothing at all. His eyes swept the store with the cautious assessment of someone used to sizing up situations quickly, and when his gaze landed on Anna, something in his expression softened slightly. "Good morning," he said, his voice rough as gravel. "Are you the proprietor?" "My uncle owns the store," Anna replied, willing her voice to remain steady and professional. "I can help you with whatever you need." The man set the saddle down carefully near the door and approached the counter. Up close, Anna could see that his eyes were an unusual shade of gray-green, like sagebrush after rain, and that a scar cut through his left eyebrow. He looked to be perhaps 28 or 30, and there was something in the way he moved that suggested both strength and weariness. "I am looking for work," he said directly. "Heard in the saloon last night that your uncle might need help with freight hauling, bringing supplies in from Virginia City and the other mining towns." Anna hesitated. Bernard had mentioned wanting to hire someone, especially now that the mining operations were expanding and the demand for goods was increasing, but she had no idea if he had already found someone or what sort of wages he might offer. "Let me get my uncle," she said. "He will want to speak with you directly." She called for Bernard, who emerged from the back room, wiping his hands on a rag. The two men shook hands and introduced themselves. The stranger's name was Grant Whitmore, and Anna felt her stomach twist at the coincidence of the first name, at the cruel joke the universe seemed to be playing. No, she corrected herself mentally. Not Grant. She would not call him that. "Do you go by Grant?" she asked abruptly, interrupting the conversation between the two men. He looked at her with surprise. "Most folks call me Gideon. It is my middle name. Grant is just what is on paper." Relief flooded through Anna, sharp and surprising. "Gideon, that is better." Both men looked at her strangely, but Bernard recovered first and turned back to Gideon. "Well, Gideon Whitmore, tell me about your experience." Anna listened as Gideon explained that he had been working cattle drives for the past decade, had driven herds from Texas to Kansas and from Nevada to Montana, had broken horses and mended fences and done just about every job a ranch might require. His last drive had ended in Virginia City 3 weeks ago, and he was looking for something more stable, something that would keep him in one place for a while. "I am tired of the trail," he admitted, and there was something in his eyes that suggested he was running from something, or perhaps towards something, though Anna could not guess what. "I can handle freight wagons, can repair them when they break, know the routes between here and most of the settlements within 100 miles. I do not drink to excess. I show up when I say I will, and I work hard." Bernard studied him for a long moment, then nodded. "The pay is $30 a month plus room and board. There is a small room out back of the store. Nothing fancy, but it is clean and dry. You would be making runs twice a week, sometimes more if orders are heavy. Sometimes you would help in the store when freight is slow. Interested?" "Very," Gideon said without hesitation. They shook hands again, and just like that, Gideon Whitmore became part of the daily fabric of Anna's life, in a way she had not anticipated, and was not entirely sure she wanted. Having him around meant having a constant reminder of masculine presence, meant noticing things like the way he moved with easy confidence, or the way his rare smiles transformed his serious face. It meant being aware of someone in a way she had promised herself she would not be aware of anyone for a very long time. But Gideon proved himself reliable and hard-working from the very first day. He loaded freight wagons with efficient precision, handled the team of horses with gentle firmness, and returned from his runs exactly when he said he would. When he helped in the store, he was polite to customers and quick to learn where things were kept and how Bernard liked things organized. He spoke when spoken to, but did not chatter unnecessarily, and there was something peaceful about his quiet presence. Anna tried to maintain a professional distance, tried not to notice the way his shoulders filled out his shirt, or the way he always held doors open for her without making a show of it. She reminded herself daily that she was not interested in men, in romance, in any of the things that had led to her heart being broken so thoroughly. But Gideon made distance difficult, not through any overt action, but simply by being thoughtful in small, unexpected ways. He noticed when she struggled to lift heavy bolts of fabric and appeared to help without her having to ask. He brought back wildflowers from his freight runs and left them on the counter without comment, small bunches of Indian paintbrush and desert marigold that brightened the store. He asked her opinion on things, genuinely listened to her answers, and never once treated her as though she was less capable because she was a woman. "He is a good man," Bernard observed one evening after Gideon had left for his room. "Solid, dependable. Not like that other fellow." Anna did not need to ask which other fellow Bernard meant. "I am not looking for a good man," she said firmly. "I am perfectly content as I am." Bernard raised his eyebrows, but said nothing, which was somehow worse than if he had argued. September arrived with cooler temperatures and the first hints of autumn color in the aspens that dotted the higher elevations. Gideon had been working at the store for nearly a month, and Anna had settled into an uneasy truce with her own awareness of him. She could acknowledge that he was attractive and kind without that meaning anything significant, she told herself. She could appreciate his presence without it threatening the walls she had built around her heart. Then came the afternoon, when everything shifted in a way she could not ignore or dismiss. Anna was alone in the store, Bernard having gone to a town council meeting, when a miner named Jake Holloway came in, reeking of whiskey and bad intentions. He was a large man, thick with muscle and mean with drink, and he had made unwelcome comments to Anna before that she had deflected with forced politeness. Today he was bolder, meaner, and Anna felt the first flutter of real fear when he leaned across the counter and grabbed her wrist. "How about you and me go upstairs and have some fun?" Jake slurred, his grip tight enough to hurt. "Heard you got left behind by that cowboy. Bet you are lonely." "Let go of me," Anna said, trying to keep her voice steady despite her racing heart. She pulled against his grip, but he only held tighter, laughing. "Come on, sweetheart. Do not be like that. A woman like you needs a man to take care of her." The door opened behind Jake, and Anna saw Gideon step inside, his eyes immediately assessing the situation. Something dangerous flashed across his face, something cold and controlled, and he crossed the store in 3 long strides. "Let her go. Now." Gideon's voice was quiet, almost conversational, but there was steel underneath that made Jake turn and blink at him stupidly. "Mind your own business," Jake said, but his grip on Anna's wrist loosened slightly. Gideon did not raise his voice, did not make any threatening gestures, but somehow his mere presence filled the space with coiled tension. "This is my business. You have 3 seconds to take your hands off her and walk out that door. If you do not, what happens next is going to hurt." Jake was drunk enough to be stupid. He released Anna's wrist but turned to face Gideon, puffing up his chest. "You threatening me?" "Warning you," Gideon corrected. "There is a difference." What happened next was so fast, Anna barely processed it. Jake swung a clumsy fist at Gideon's face, and Gideon simply was not there anymore, having moved aside with economical grace. Then Gideon had Jake's arm twisted behind his back and was walking him toward the door with what looked like very little effort. "You are going to leave now," Gideon said calmly. "You are not going to come back until you are sober. If you bother Miss Ellsworth again, if you so much as look at her wrong, you and I are going to have a much longer conversation. Understood?" Jake sputtered protests, but allowed himself to be propelled out the door and into the street. Gideon released him with a slight push that sent the bigger man stumbling, then stood in the doorway until Jake wandered off toward the saloon, muttering curses. When Gideon turned back to Anna, the dangerous coldness was gone from his face, replaced by concern. "Are you all right? Did he hurt you?" Anna realized she was shaking, adrenaline flooding her system now that the immediate threat was past. She looked down at her wrist, which bore red marks in the shape of Jake's fingers. "I am fine, just startled." Gideon crossed to the counter and gently took her hand, examining her wrist with a frown. His touch was completely different from Jake's, careful and respectful, and Anna felt something warm unfurl in her chest, despite her determination not to feel anything at all. "That is going to bruise," Gideon said quietly. "Do you have anything to put on it, arnica or witch hazel?" "In the back," Anna said, her voice coming out smaller than she intended. Gideon released her hand and went to fetch the medicine, returning with the bottle and a clean cloth. He dampened the cloth and wrapped it around her wrist with surprising gentleness, for someone with such rough, work-worn hands. "Thank you," Anna said, and meant it. "I do not know what I would have done if you had not come in when you did." "You do not need to thank me," Gideon replied. Any decent person would have done the same. But Anna knew that was not entirely true. Plenty of men would have hesitated, would have worried about causing trouble or making a scene. Gideon had not hesitated at all, had put himself between her and danger without a moment's thought. "How did you do that?" she asked. "Handle him so easily, I mean. He outweighs you by at least 40 pounds. Gideon's expression went carefully neutral. "I spent some time in the army after the war. They teach you things." Anna wanted to ask more, wanted to know what other stories lay behind those gray-green eyes, but something in his posture suggested the subject was closed. Instead, she said, "Well, I am grateful regardless. I was frightened." "You did not show it," Gideon observed. "You stayed calm, did not panic. That takes strength." The compliment caught Anna off guard, and she felt heat rise to her cheeks. "I have had to learn to be strong. This past year has taught me that." Something shifted in Gideon's expression, something knowing and sympathetic. "I heard some talk around town about what happened with the fellow who left. If it is not too forward of me to say, he was a fool." Anna's throat tightened. "You do not know anything about it. I know that any man who would make promises to a woman like you and then break them is the worst kind of fool," Gideon said simply. "I know that his loss is probably someone else's gain, though I imagine it does not feel that way to you right now." The unexpected understanding in his voice nearly undid Anna completely. She blinked back tears that she refused to let fall, at least not in front of Gideon, not in the middle of the store where anyone might walk in. "I should get back to work," she managed, removing the cloth from her wrist. "Thank you again for your help." Gideon nodded and stepped back, giving her space, but his eyes held a warmth that Anna felt all the way through her carefully constructed defenses. After he left to go check on the freight wagon, she stood in the quiet store and admitted to herself what she had been trying so hard to deny. She was dangerously close to developing feelings for Gideon Whitmore, and she had absolutely no idea what to do about it. The autumn deepened, and Carson City prepared for winter with the practicality of a town that knew survival meant preparation. Gideon made runs to bring in extra supplies before the mountain passes became treacherous with snow. Anna helped Bernard stock the store with everything from canned goods to warm blankets to the mail order items that people had requested for Christmas. Through it all, Anna became increasingly aware of Gideon in ways both comforting and terrifying. He never pushed, never presumed, but his quiet presence became something she looked forward to each day. He began taking his meals with Anna and Bernard in the small kitchen behind the store, and the conversations over dinner became the highlight of Anna's evenings. Gideon told stories about the places he had been, the characters he had met on various cattle drives, the beauty of the open range under stars that went on forever. He had a dry sense of humor that caught Anna by surprise and made her laugh in ways she had not laughed in months. He asked about her life, her dreams, the things she wanted beyond the walls of the general store, and he listened to her answers with the kind of attention that made her feel truly seen. But Anna also noticed what Gideon did not talk about. He never mentioned family, never spoke of where he came from, or why he had been drifting from job to job for so many years. There was a guardedness to him, a sense of walls not unlike her own, and Anna wondered what pain he was carrying, what past he was trying to outrun or forget. One evening in early October, after dinner, Bernard excused himself to attend a poker game with friends, leaving Anna and Gideon alone to wash dishes. They worked in companionable silence for a while, Anna washing and Gideon drying, until Anna finally gathered the courage to ask what had been on her mind for weeks. "Why did you really leave the cattle drives?" she asked quietly. "You said you were tired of the trail, but I think there is more to it than that." Gideon was quiet for so long that Anna thought he might not answer. Then he set down the plate he was drying and leaned against the counter, his expression distant. "I was on a drive to Montana," he said finally. "We had been on the trail for 3 months, had dealt with storms and river crossings and stampedes. We were almost to Billings when we lost a man. He was young, maybe 20, and he got caught in a flash flood trying to move cattle across a swollen creek. We searched for 2 days, but never found his body." Anna's hands stilled in the dishwater. "That must have been terrible." "His name was Sam," Gideon continued, his voice rough with memory. "He had a girl waiting for him back in Texas, had showed me her picture at least 100 times. He was going to marry her with the money from the drive. I had to write to her and tell her he was not coming home. Had to explain that we did not even have a body to send back for burial." "I am sorry," Anna said softly, understanding now the weight she sometimes saw in Gideon's eyes. "After that, I could not do it anymore," Gideon said. "Could not spend my life losing people, watching them get hurt or killed, writing letters to families who were waiting for someone who would never come home. I know that sounds cowardly, but I was done." "It does not sound cowardly," Anna assured him. "It sounds human." Gideon looked at her then, really looked at her, and something passed between them that felt significant and irreversible. "You understand loss," he said. It was not a question. "I do," Anna agreed. "Though my loss is different from yours. Less final, maybe, but still painful." "Tell me about him," Gideon said. "The man who left. Tell me what happened." Anna had not talked about Grant Westfield in detail with anyone, had deflected questions and changed subjects. But now, standing in the warm kitchen with Gideon, she found she wanted to share the story. She told him everything, how Grant had courted her, how he had promised to return, how the letter from the cattle buyer had shattered her world. "The worst part," Anna admitted, her voice breaking slightly, "is that I do not even know if he thinks about me at all. If he regrets what he did, or if he just forgot about me completely the moment he met someone else. The not knowing eats at me." Gideon was quiet for a moment, then said, "I can tell you what I think if you want to hear it. Please." "I think he probably does think about you," Gideon said carefully. "I think he probably knows he made a terrible mistake, but I also think he is too much of a coward to admit it, to face what he did. So he will pretend it never happened, will tell himself whatever lies he needs to sleep at night, and will go on with his life." The assessment was so clear, so unflinching, that Anna felt something release in her chest. "You are probably right. The question is," Gideon continued, turning to face her fully, "are you going to let what he did define the rest of your life? Are you going to let his cowardice steal your future?" Anna met his eyes, saw the challenge and the hope there. "I do not want to," she said honestly, "but I am afraid. Afraid of trusting someone again, afraid of being hurt again." "Fear is reasonable," Gideon said, "but fear can also be a cage if we let it be." He was standing close enough that Anna could see the silver threading through the stubble on his jaw, could smell the faint scent of soap and leather that seemed to follow him. Her heart was beating too fast, and she knew they were on the edge of something that would change everything. "Gideon," she started, but did not know how to finish. He reached out slowly, giving her plenty of time to pull away, and tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. His fingers were gentle, his expression serious. "I know the timing is probably terrible," he said quietly. "I know you are still healing, but I need you to know that I care about you, Anna. More than I probably should, given how long I have known you. And I will wait as long as you need me to wait, or I will step back if that is what you want." But I needed to say it out loud, at least once. Anna's breath caught. Part of her wanted to retreat, to protect herself, to say that she was not ready. But a larger part, the part that had been slowly coming back to life over these past weeks, wanted to be brave. "I care about you too," she whispered. "It terrifies me, but I do." Gideon's face transformed with a smile that was so genuinely happy it made Anna's chest ache. "Then we will figure it out together," he said. Slowly, no pressure, no expectations, just seeing where this goes. Anna nodded, not trusting herself to speak, and let Gideon take her hand. His palm was warm and calloused against hers, and the simple touch felt like a promise, like a beginning. Over the following weeks, Anna and Gideon navigated their growing feelings with careful tenderness. Gideon was true to his word about taking things slowly, never pushing for more than Anna was ready to give. They took walks together in the evenings when the store closed, wandering the streets of Carson City, or following the trails that led up into the foothills. They talked about everything and nothing, sharing stories and dreams and fears. Gideon told Anna about growing up on a farm in Missouri, about losing his parents to cholera when he was 16, about joining the army because he had nowhere else to go. He spoke carefully about the war, about things he had seen that still haunted him, and Anna listened without judgment, holding his hand when the memories became too heavy. Anna told Gideon about her childhood, about her parents who had been loving but strict, about how lonely she had felt after they died, and she came to live with Bernard. She confessed her fears about ending up alone, about never finding the kind of love that made life feel full and complete. "You are not going to end up alone," Gideon told her one evening as they sat on a bench outside the store, watching the sun paint the mountains pink and gold. "You are too extraordinary for that." "I do not feel extraordinary," Anna admitted. "Most days I just feel ordinary and uncertain." "Extraordinary people usually do," Gideon replied. "It is the ordinary ones who are convinced they are special." Anna laughed despite herself, leaning her head against Gideon's shoulder in a gesture that was becoming natural and right. "Where did you learn to say things like that?" "Books," Gideon said. "I might have spent my life on cattle drives, but I always carried books in my saddlebags, got teased mercilessly for it, but I did not care." This revelation delighted Anna, who loved to read but rarely met people who shared her passion. They began trading books, discussing stories over dinner, and Anna thought that maybe this easy companionship and intellectual connection was what real love was supposed to feel like. Not the dramatic, overwhelming passion she had felt with Grant Westfield, but something steadier, deeper, more enduring. November arrived with frost on the windows and the first real snowfall dusting the mountains. Business at the store slowed slightly as people hunkered down for winter, and Bernard began talking about expanding the store in the spring, maybe adding a section for farm equipment and tools. "If Gideon is staying on," Bernard said one evening, with a meaningful look at Anna, "we will have the manpower to handle a larger operation." Gideon had been stacking firewood near the stove, but paused at Bernard's words. "I am staying," he said, glancing at Anna, "if that is all right with everyone." "It is more than all right," Bernard said, his tone warm with approval. Anna felt a rush of gratitude for her uncle, for his acceptance of Gideon, for the way he had welcomed this relationship without reservation. She knew he just wanted her to be happy, and for the first time in a long time, she was beginning to believe that happiness might actually be possible. On a cold December afternoon, nearly 5 months after Gideon had first walked into the store, Anna was helping a customer when the bell above the door chimed and a familiar figure stepped inside. Her heart, which had been healing so carefully, seemed to stop altogether. Grant Westfield stood in the doorway, looking tired and windburned, and so completely out of place that Anna wondered if she was hallucinating. He wore a heavy coat against the cold, and his eyes found Anna immediately, something desperate and pleading in their depths. "Anna," he said, and his voice was exactly as she remembered, exactly as it had sounded in her dreams and nightmares for months. The customer Anna had been helping looked between them with obvious curiosity, and Anna forced herself to breathe, to think. "Excuse me for just a moment," she said to the customer, then walked stiffly to where Grant stood. "What are you doing here?" she asked, keeping her voice low and controlled despite the chaos rioting through her system. "I came to see you," Grant said, taking a step closer. "I came to explain, to apologize. Anna, I made the biggest mistake of my life." From the corner of her eye, Anna saw Gideon emerge from the back room, saw him take in the scene and go very still. She shook her head slightly, a gesture she hoped conveyed that she could handle this, and turned her full attention back to Grant. "You cannot just show up here after all this time and expect me to want to hear explanations," Anna said, surprised by how steady her voice sounded. "You married someone else, Grant. You made your choice." "It was a mistake," Grant insisted, his voice rising slightly. "Catherine, the woman I married, she is not you. Her father offered me the foreman job, offered me a future, and I thought it was what I wanted, but I have been miserable every single day. I realize that what I really want is you." The words that once would have made Anna's heart sore now just made her feel tired and sad. "What about your wife?" she asked. "What about the vows you made to her?" Grant looked away, uncomfortable. "We can get a divorce. It happens. We can work this out, Anna. We can have the life we planned." Before Anna could respond, Gideon walked over, his presence steady and grounding. He did not touch Anna, did not stake any obvious claim, but his proximity made his position clear. "I think you should leave," Gideon said calmly. "Anna does not owe you her time or her forgiveness." Grant's eyes narrowed as he looked between them. "Who are you?" "Someone who did not abandon her," Gideon replied evenly. The barb hit its mark, and Grant flinched. But then his expression hardened. "This is between me and Anna. You have no right to interfere." "Actually," Anna said, finding her voice and her strength, "he has every right. Gideon is the man who has been here, who has been honest and kind and everything you were not. And you need to leave, Grant. Right now." "Anna, please," Grant tried again, reaching for her hand. She stepped back, out of his reach, and felt Gideon move slightly closer in silent support. "No," she said firmly. "You do not get to do this. You do not get to come back after breaking my heart and expect me to just forget everything. You made your choices, and now you have to live with them. I have moved on." "With him?" Grant asked, gesturing at Gideon with something like contempt. "You have known him for what, a few months? We had history, Anna. We had plans. We had lies," Anna corrected. "Or at least, I had lies told to me. But I am done with that. I am done with you. Please leave." Grant looked like he wanted to argue further, but something in Anna's expression must have convinced him it would be futile. He stared at her for a long moment, then turned and walked out without another word, the bell above the door chiming his departure. The silence that followed felt enormous. The customer Anna had been helping quietly paid for her items and left, clearly uncomfortable with having witnessed the scene. Bernard emerged from wherever he had been and gave Anna a questioning look, but she shook her head, unable to talk about it just yet. Gideon remained beside her, solid and patient, until Anna finally turned to him. "I need some air," she said. "Do you want company, or do you want to be alone?" Gideon asked. "Company," Anna decided. "Please." They bundled into coats and stepped out into the December afternoon, the cold air sharp in Anna's lungs. They walked without speaking for several minutes, Anna processing everything that had just happened, everything she had said and felt. Finally, she stopped and turned to face Gideon. "I did not know he was coming," she said. "I did not invite this." "I know," Gideon said simply. "And everything I said in there, I meant it. All of it." Gideon's expression softened. "I know that too." "I thought seeing him again would break me all over again," Anna admitted. "I thought I would feel something, anything for him. But I did not. I just felt sorry for him, and relieved that he is not my problem anymore." "That is called healing," Gideon said gently. Anna laughed, the sound slightly shaky but genuine. "I suppose it is." Gideon reached out and took her hands, his expression serious. "I need you to know that I am not going anywhere," he said. "I am not going to leave you, not going to break promises. You can trust me, Anna. I know that is a big ask, given what you have been through, but it is true. Looking into his gray-green eyes, Anna believed him. More than that, she felt it, felt the truth of his words all the way through her being. I know, she said softly. I do trust you, Gideon. That terrified me at first, but now it just feels right. Gideon smiled, that rare, transformative smile that made Anna's breath catch. Can I kiss you? He asked. I have wanted to for weeks, but I did not want to rush you. Yes, Anna whispered. Please. Gideon cupped her face in his hands, his touch gentle and reverent, and kissed her with a tenderness that made Anna feel cherished and safe and desperately, wonderfully alive. It was nothing like kissing Grant had been. There was no urgency or demand, just sweetness and promise and the sense of coming home. When they pulled apart, Anna was smiling through tears she had not realized were falling. I love you, she said, the words escaping before she could think about whether it was too soon or too much. I did not mean to fall in love with you, but I did anyway. Good, Gideon said, wiping away her tears with his thumbs. Because I fell in love with you the first week I was here, and I have been waiting for you to catch up. Anna laughed, joy bubbling up in her chest, bright and effervescent. We should probably head back to the store before Bernard sends out a search party. Probably, Gideon agreed, but neither of them moved for a long moment, just standing together in the cold December afternoon, holding each other and marveling at the unexpected miracle of finding love in the aftermath of heartbreak. When they finally returned to the store, Bernard took one look at their joined hands and their happy faces and smiled. About time, was all he said, but his eyes were warm with approval and relief. That evening, after the store closed, the three of them sat around the kitchen table and talked about the future. Gideon asked Bernard formally if he could court Anna with the intention of marriage, and Bernard gave his blessing without hesitation. Anna felt like her heart might burst from the fullness of it all, from how completely her life had transformed in just a few short months. When Grant left, I thought my life was over, Anna confessed. I thought I would never be happy again. But you were wrong, Gideon said, squeezing her hand. So wrong, Anna agreed, smiling at him across the table. The best kind of wrong. Christmas came and went in a flurry of joy and celebration. Anna gave Gideon a set of leather-bound books she had ordered specially from San Francisco, and he gave her a hand-carved wooden box for storing keepsakes, the lid inlaid with an intricate pattern of stars. They attended the town's Christmas social together, and Anna felt pride instead of shame when people looked at them, felt grateful for the gossip that now centered on her happiness rather than her humiliation. In February, Gideon proposed officially, presenting Anna with a ring he had commissioned from the town's jeweler. It was a simple gold band with a small sapphire, and it fit perfectly on her finger. I wanted something as unique as you are, Gideon said as he slipped it onto her hand. Something that would not remind you of anything or anyone else. It is perfect, Anna assured him, and meant it with her whole heart. They married in April, when the desert was blooming with wildflowers and the air was soft with the promise of spring. The ceremony took place in the small church on the edge of town, with Bernard walking Anna down the aisle and half of Carson City packed into the pews. Anna wore a new dress, not the one she had made for Grant, and she felt beautiful and blessed, and entirely certain of her choice. Gideon stood at the front of the church, looking nervous and handsome in a new suit, and when Anna reached him, he took her hands and smiled with such love that several people in the congregation dabbed at their eyes. The Reverend spoke about commitment and faith, about how marriage was a partnership built on trust and respect, and Anna listened with her whole heart. When it came time for vows, Gideon spoke first. Anna, I promise to stand beside you in all things, he said, his voice steady and clear. I promise to be honest with you, to support your dreams, to make you laugh when you need it, and hold you when the world feels hard. I promise to build a life with you that is filled with love and purpose. And I promise, above all else, to never make you doubt my commitment or my love. You are my home, and I am grateful for every day I get to spend with you. Anna was crying before he finished, tears of happiness streaming down her face. When it was her turn, she squeezed his hands and said, Gideon, you came into my life when I thought I had nothing left to hope for. You showed me that healing is possible, that love can be gentle and strong at the same time. I promise to trust you, to build this life with you, to face whatever comes with courage and faith. "You have given me back my future, and I cannot wait to spend it with you." When the Reverend pronounced them husband and wife, Gideon kissed Anna with a joy that made the whole congregation cheer, and Anna thought she had never been so happy in her entire life. The reception was held at the Silver Dollar Saloon, which the owner had offered to close for the afternoon in honor of the occasion. There was food and music and dancing, and Anna danced with Gideon until her feet hurt and her face ached from smiling. Bernard pulled her aside at one point, his eyes suspiciously bright. "Your parents would be so proud of you," he said, hugging her tightly. "You have built a good life, Anna, a happy one." "Thank you for everything," Anna said, hugging him back. "I could not have survived without you." "You would have," Bernard assured her. "You are stronger than you know. But I am glad I could be here for you anyway." As the sun set and the celebration continued, Anna found herself standing outside the saloon with Gideon, looking up at the stars that sprawled across the Nevada sky. "What are you thinking?" Gideon asked, wrapping his arm around her waist. "I am thinking about how grateful I am that Grant Westfield broke my heart," Anna said, then laughed at Gideon's surprised expression. "If he had not, I never would have been free to find you. I would have married the wrong person and spent my whole life wondering why I felt so incomplete." "I am grateful too," Gideon admitted. "Grateful that I ended that cattle drive in Virginia City. Grateful that I wandered into Carson City looking for work. Grateful for every moment that led me to you." They stood together in the darkness, listening to the music and laughter drifting from the saloon, and Anna felt a peace settle over her that she had never experienced before. This was what love was supposed to feel like, safe and exciting at the same time, comfortable and passionate, a partnership of equals building something beautiful together. "Ready to start our life?" Gideon asked eventually. "More than ready," Anna replied. They moved into a small house that Bernard helped them purchase, a cottage on the edge of town with a garden plot and a barn for Gideon's horses. Anna continued working at the store part-time while Gideon managed the freight operations, and together they built a life that was full and purposeful and deeply content. The seasons turned, and Anna discovered she was pregnant in the late autumn of their first year of marriage. She told Gideon one evening as they sat by the fire, his hand immediately going to her still flat stomach with wonder and joy. "Are you happy?" Anna asked, needing to hear him say it. "Happier than I ever thought possible," Gideon assured her. "We are going to be a family, Anna, a real family." Their son was born the following June, a healthy baby with dark hair and his father's gray-green eyes. They named him Samuel Bernard Whitmore, honoring both the young man Gideon had lost on the cattle drive and the uncle who had been Anna's rock through the hardest times. Holding her baby for the first time, Anna thought about how radically different her life had turned out from what she had once imagined. She had thought Grant Westfield was her future, had been devastated when that future was ripped away. But now she understood that Grant leaving had been a blessing in disguise, painful at the time, but ultimately necessary. He had never been right for her, had never been capable of the kind of partnership she craved. Gideon was right for her in every way that mattered. He was patient and kind and steady. He made her laugh and challenged her to be brave. He supported her ambitions and respected her opinions. He was a devoted father, spending hours with Samuel, telling him stories and singing him songs in a surprisingly lovely baritone. 2 years after Samuel was born, Anna gave birth to a daughter they named Rose Margaret, and their family felt complete. The cottage that had once seemed spacious now bustled with the chaos of young children, with toys scattered across the floor and laughter echoing through the rooms. Bernard remained a constant presence in their lives, doting on his great-nephew and great-niece with unabashed affection. He taught Samuel to count using candy from the store jars and let Rose help him sweep the floors with a child-sized broom Gideon had made specially for her. "You have a beautiful family," Bernard told Anna one afternoon as they watched Gideon playing with the children in the garden. "This is what I always wanted for you." "I know," Anna said, linking her arm through his. "I am lucky beyond measure." The years continued to unfold with the ordinary magic of a well-lived life. Gideon expanded the freight business, hiring additional drivers and extending their routes to settlements throughout Nevada and into California. Anna began teaching children to read on Saturday mornings in a room above the store, finding joy in shaping young minds and encouraging a love of learning. They faced challenges, of course. There were hard winters when supplies ran low and money was tight. There were illnesses that swept through the town, scaring Anna terribly until her children recovered. There were disagreements and frustrations, moments when the weight of responsibility felt overwhelming. But through it all, Anna and Gideon faced everything together, with honesty and communication and a fundamental trust that never wavered. They learned each other's strengths and weaknesses, learned how to support each other through difficulties, learned that love was not just a feeling, but a choice they made every single day. One summer evening, nearly 10 years after their wedding, Anna stood in the garden watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of rose and gold. Gideon came up behind her and wrapped his arms around her waist, resting his chin on her shoulder. "What are you thinking about?" he asked, a question he had asked hundreds of times over the years. "About how different my life is from what I once imagined," Anna said honestly. "About how grateful I am for every twist and turn that led me here." "Even the painful parts?" Gideon asked gently. "Especially the painful parts," Anna replied, turning in his arms to face him. "Because they taught me what I really needed, what real love looks like, and they led me to you." Gideon kissed her, a sweet, familiar kiss that still made her heart race even after all these years. "I love you, Anna Whitmore," he said against her lips. "I love you too," Anna replied, "always and forever." From inside the house, they heard Samuel calling for them, heard Rose's delighted laughter as she played some game with her brother. The sounds of their life, their family, their future. "We should go in," Gideon said. But neither of them moved immediately, taking a moment to simply be together, to appreciate the life they had built from the ashes of heartbreak and disappointment. As they walked back toward the house, Anna thought about Grant Westfield one last time. She had heard through the gossip network that connected small western towns that his marriage had indeed ended in divorce, that he had drifted from job to job, never quite finding his place or his purpose. She felt a distant pity for him, but no regret, no lingering pain. He had made his choices, and she had made hers. And her choices had led her to this: a home filled with love, a husband who cherished her, children who brought her joy, a community where she belonged, and a future bright with possibility. The cowboy who rode back alone had been Gideon, coming to Carson City to find a new life, not running away, but running towards something better. And Anna, who had believed she would never love again, had found in him a partner beyond her wildest dreams. Their story was not the one Anna had written in her imagination during those dark days after Grant's betrayal. It was better. It was real. It was filled with ordinary moments that added up to an extraordinary life. And as Anna tucked her children into bed that night, as Gideon read them a story in his deep, soothing voice, as she looked around at the life they had created together through patience and faith and love, she understood with perfect clarity that sometimes the best futures are the ones we never could have planned. Sometimes hearts have to break so they can heal stronger. Sometimes people have to leave so the right ones can arrive. Sometimes the end of one dream is just the beginning of something far more beautiful than we ever dared to imagine. Anna had believed Grant had taken another bride, had believed her chance at happiness was gone forever. But the cowboy who rode back alone brought her a love that was truer and deeper than anything she had lost. And in the end, that made all the difference. Years continued to pass, each one adding richness and depth to the tapestry of their lives. Samuel grew into a thoughtful boy who loved books as much as his father did, who dreamed of becoming a teacher like his mother. Rose was spirited and adventurous, always climbing trees and exploring, determined to experience everything life had to offer. When Samuel was 12 and Rose was 10, Anna discovered she was pregnant again, a surprise that delighted and terrified her in equal measure. She was 38 years old, and having babies at her age carried more risk. But Gideon was overjoyed, and Anna found herself cautiously excited as well. Their third child, a boy they named Thomas James, arrived healthy and strong in the spring of 1888. He had Anna's dark eyes and Gideon's quiet disposition, and his older siblings adored him instantly, fighting over who got to hold him and help care for him. Bernard, now in his 70s, joked that he was too old to keep up with another baby, but spent hours rocking Thomas to sleep, singing old songs from his own childhood. Watching her uncle with her youngest son, Anna felt overwhelmed with gratitude for the family she had been given, both the one she was born into and the one she had created. The town of Carson City grew and changed around them. The mining operations expanded, bringing new people and new businesses. The railroad finally came through, connecting them more directly to the rest of the country. The general store thrived under Bernard's continued guidance and Anna's business acumen, becoming a cornerstone of the community. Gideon's freight business evolved with the times, adapting to the changes brought by the railroad, while still serving the more remote settlements that the trains could not reach. He hired young men from the area, teaching them the routes and the skills they would need, creating opportunities in a region where opportunities were not always plentiful. On their 15th wedding anniversary, Gideon surprised Anna with a trip to San Francisco, arranging for Bernard and a trusted neighbor to watch the children for a week. It was the first time Anna had been away from the children overnight, and she was anxious at first, but Gideon insisted she deserved the break, deserved to be just Anna for a little while, instead of mother and wife and store clerk. San Francisco dazzled her with its sophistication and energy, so different from the dusty practicality of Carson City. They stayed in a real hotel with velvet curtains and gas lighting, ate in restaurants where the food was served on china plates, and walked through parks where flowers bloomed in profusion. They attended a play at a grand theater, and Anna sat in the darkness holding Gideon's hand, amazed by the acting and the spectacle. But as wonderful as the trip was, Anna found herself missing home, missing her children, missing the simplicity and honesty of their life in Nevada. The city was beautiful, but it was not where she belonged. Her heart was in Carson City, in the cottage with the garden, in the store where she knew every customer by name, in the community that had become her family. "You are ready to go home," Gideon observed on their last night in the city, reading her expression with the ease of long familiarity. "I am," Anna admitted. "Does that make me ungrateful? You went to so much trouble to plan this." "It makes you someone who knows where she belongs," Gideon said, pulling her close. "And I feel the same way. This has been a wonderful adventure, but home is where our life is." They returned to Carson City to a joyful reunion with their children, who had apparently driven Bernard to the edge of his patience with their antics. Thomas had learned to crawl in their absence, and Rose had lost a tooth, and Samuel had finished 2 books and had a dozen questions about San Francisco. Life settled back into its comfortable rhythms, the days flowing into weeks and months with the gentle inevitability of a river moving toward the sea. Anna taught her students, worked in the store, raised her children, and loved her husband. Gideon ran his business, provided for his family, and created a home where laughter was common and everyone felt safe and valued. They were not perfect people living a perfect life. There were arguments and disappointments, days when exhaustion made everyone short-tempered, moments when the challenges felt overwhelming, but they faced everything together with commitment and grace, and the life they built was solid and true. Bernard passed away peacefully in his sleep when Thomas was 5 years old, and the loss hit Anna harder than she had anticipated. Her uncle had been her anchor through so much, had given her a home when she had nowhere else to go, had believed in her when she struggled to believe in herself. The funeral was attended by what seemed like the entire town, a testament to how beloved Bernard had been. Anna stood beside Gideon, holding his hand tightly, and listened as person after person spoke about her uncle's kindness, his fairness, his generosity. She felt proud and devastated in equal measure. Bernard left the store to Anna in his will, a legacy that felt both honoring and heavy. She had grown up in that store, had worked there for nearly 25 years, but owning it was different from simply working there. It was a responsibility and an opportunity, a chance to shape the business according to her own vision while honoring everything Bernard had built. With Gideon's support and Samuel's growing interest in the business side of things, Anna expanded the store's offerings and modernized some of their practices. She started a lending library in one corner, free for anyone in town to use. She brought in goods from catalogs that customers could order specially. She hired young women from the area, giving them employment opportunities beyond domestic service or teaching. The store became more than just a place to buy supplies. It became a gathering place, a community hub, where people came not just for goods, but for connection, for conversation, for a sense of belonging. Anna took pride in that, in creating a space that served her town in multiple ways. Samuel, now a young man of 22, decided to become a lawyer, articling with an attorney in Virginia City while still helping with the store on weekends. Rose, at 20, shocked everyone by announcing her intention to attend a women's college in California, determined to study medicine. Thomas, at 13, was still figuring out his path, but showed a talent for drawing and design that suggested he might become an architect or engineer. Anna watched her children pursuing their dreams with a mixture of pride and bittersweet awareness that they were growing up, that they would soon build lives independent of the nest she and Gideon had created. But that was how it should be, she knew. They had raised their children to be capable and confident, to chase their ambitions, to create their own futures. "We did good," Gideon said one evening as they sat on the porch of their cottage, watching the stars emerge in the darkening sky. "Look at them. Look at what we made together." "We did very good," Anna agreed, resting her head on his shoulder. "I am so proud of them, of us." Gideon wrapped his arm around her, and they sat in comfortable silence, the kind of silence that only comes from decades of shared life, from knowing someone so thoroughly that words are often unnecessary. "Do you ever think about him?" Gideon asked eventually. "Grant Westfield, I mean." Anna was surprised by the question. They rarely spoke of Grant anymore, the wound so completely healed that it barely left a scar. "Not really," she said honestly. "Once in a while, I will hear something that reminds me of that time. But he himself? No. He is part of my past, but not an important part. Not anymore." "Good," Gideon said simply. "Do you ever regret it?" Anna asked. "Taking that job here, staying in Carson City instead of moving on like you usually did?" "Not for a single moment," Gideon replied without hesitation. "Coming here, meeting you, building this life, these are the best decisions I ever made. Everything before was just me wandering, looking for something I did not even know I needed. And then I found you, and I found home." Anna tilted her face up to kiss him, still feeling that flutter of excitement even after all these years. "I love you, Gideon Whitmore. Thank you for staying." "I love you too, Anna Whitmore. Thank you for taking a chance on a drifter with a sad story." "You were never just a drifter," Anna said firmly. "You were exactly the right person at exactly the right time." As they sat together watching the stars wheel slowly across the sky, Anna reflected on the journey that had brought them to this moment. She thought about the young woman she had been, heartbroken and humiliated, certain her life was over. She thought about the risks she had taken, the trust she had rebuilt, the love she had allowed herself to accept despite her fear. The path had not been easy or straightforward, but it had been hers, and she had walked it with courage and faith. And in the end, she had found something far more valuable than the future she had lost. She had found a partner who truly saw her, who valued her, who built a life with her based on mutual respect and genuine affection. That was what real love looked like, Anna knew now. Not grand gestures or dramatic declarations, though those had their place. Real love was the daily choice to show up, to be present, to work through difficulties together. It was the accumulation of small kindnesses and shared responsibilities and moments of connection. It was building something that lasted, that weathered storms and celebrated sunshine in equal measure. Years continued their inevitable march forward. Samuel married a lovely young woman named Elizabeth and brought her back to Carson City to start his law practice. Rose completed her medical studies and returned home to serve as the town's first female doctor, a role she embraced with passion and competence despite the skepticism of some older residents. Thomas moved to San Francisco to study architecture, sending home detailed sketches of buildings he admired and designs he imagined. Anna and Gideon became grandparents when Samuel and Elizabeth had twin girls, bringing new energy and chaos into their lives. Watching Gideon with his granddaughters, seeing the gentle patience with which he answered their endless questions and played their imaginary games, made Anna fall in love with him all over again. They were in their 50s now, no longer young but not yet old, with the kind of contentment that comes from having lived well and loved deeply. Anna's hair had silver threads running through it, and Gideon's face was deeply lined from years of sun and weather, but to each other, they were still the people who had fallen in love over dishwater and quiet conversations. The store continued to thrive under Anna's management, and Gideon's freight business adapted to the changing times, now focusing more on specialty goods and rapid delivery rather than bulk hauling. They were respected members of the community, people whose opinion mattered, whose advice was sought, whose presence was valued. But more than any external success, what mattered most to Anna was the life they had built together, the family they had raised, the love they continued to nurture and protect. That was the real measure of a life well lived, she believed. Not wealth or status or fame, but connection and purpose and the knowledge that you had made a positive difference in the world. On a warm summer evening in 1903, Anna and Gideon celebrated their 30th wedding anniversary, surrounded by family and friends. The party was held in the garden of their cottage, which had been expanded over the years to accommodate their growing family. Lanterns hung from tree branches, casting gentle light over tables laden with food. Music played, and people danced, and laughter filled the air. Samuel stood to give a toast, his voice strong and clear. "To my parents," he said, raising his glass. "Thank you for showing all of us what love truly means. Thank you for building a home where we always felt safe and valued. Thank you for your sacrifices and your wisdom and your endless support. We are who we are because of you." Rose added her own toast, her eyes bright with emotion. "Thank you for teaching me to be strong, to pursue my dreams even when others doubted. Thank you for showing me that women can be anything they choose to be." Thomas, home from San Francisco for the celebration, raised his glass as well. "Thank you for the books and the conversations and the encouragement. Thank you for letting me find my own path, even when it took me far from home." Anna was crying openly by the time her children finished, and Gideon had to clear his throat several times before he could speak. "Your mother and I are the lucky ones," he said finally. "We found each other against all odds, and we built this beautiful life together. And you three, and now your children, you are the greatest accomplishment of that life. We love you all more than words can express." As the party continued into the night, Anna found herself standing apart for a moment, observing the scene with a full heart. She saw her children, confident and capable adults pursuing meaningful lives. She saw her grandchildren, innocent and joyful, full of potential. She saw her husband, still handsome to her eyes, still the man who made her feel safe and cherished and understood. And she thought about the girl she had been, standing at that window watching for a man who never came back, believing her chance at happiness had been stolen away. That girl could never have imagined this future, could never have conceived of the blessings that would come from that heartbreak. But Anna knew something now that the younger version of herself had not understood. Sometimes the greatest gifts come wrapped in disappointment. Sometimes doors have to close so that better ones can open. Sometimes we have to lose what we thought we wanted in order to find what we actually need. Grant Westfield had ridden away to Montana and taken another bride, and at the time it felt like the end of Anna's world. But Gideon Whitmore had ridden back alone, carrying his own heartbreak and his own hopes, and had found in Carson City not just a job, but a home, not just an employer, but a family, not just a woman, but his soulmate. And Anna, who had believed she would never love again, had found in him everything she had been searching for without knowing it: a partner, a friend, a love that was steady and true and lasting. That was the story she would tell her grandchildren someday, when they were old enough to understand. Not the fairy tale version where everything was perfect and easy, but the real version with all its pain and doubt and eventual triumph. Because real love stories are not about perfection. They are about perseverance, about choosing each other every day, about building something that lasts through honesty and commitment and grace. As the evening wound down and guests began to depart, Anna stood with Gideon under the stars, much as they had done countless times over the past 3 decades. His arm was around her waist, her head on his shoulder, their bodies fitting together with the ease of long familiarity. 30 years, Gideon said softly, and I would do every single one of them again. So would I, Anna replied. Every joy, every challenge, every moment, all of it brought us here. Here is pretty perfect, Gideon observed. Anna smiled up at him. Here is home. And as she said it, Anna understood that home had never been a place, not really. It had always been the people you loved, the connections you nurtured, the life you built with courage and hope and faith. She had found her home in Gideon, in their children, in the community they served, and the legacy they were creating. The cowboy had ridden back alone, but he had not stayed alone. And the woman who believed she would never love again had found a love beyond her wildest dreams. Together, they had created something beautiful and enduring, something that would outlast them both and ripple forward through generations. That was the real happy ending, Anna knew. Not a wedding or a kiss or a single moment of triumph, but a lifetime of moments, of choices, of love given and received. A story that continued to unfold with each passing day. Always surprising, always challenging, always worth every struggle. And as Anna and Gideon walked back toward their cottage, hand in hand under the Nevada stars, she felt grateful for every twist and turn that had brought them together, grateful for the pain that had opened her heart to healing, grateful for the courage it had taken to love again. She had believed he had taken another bride, and that belief had nearly destroyed her. But the cowboy who rode back alone had brought her salvation in the form of steady devotion and genuine partnership. And together they had built a love story for the ages, one measured not in dramatic gestures but in quiet moments, in daily choices, in a commitment that never wavered. That was the legacy they would leave behind. Not wealth or fame, but love. Pure, enduring, transformative love that had changed them both and would continue to change everyone it touched for generations to come. And in the end, what could be more perfect than that?